Hey, Ryu. After we talked about the life of courtesans and Oran in the last video, I couldn't stop thinking about what their lives were really like. So, I did some research.
Oh, Sora. You've gotten curious about the lives of courtesans, huh? It's a heavy topic, but it's important to know what they went through.
Thanks, Ryu. Let me start with how women became courtesans. Most of them were born into poor families, and were sent to the pleasure quarters through a process called selling oneself. This was especially common in rural areas, where parents, struggling with debt, would sell their daughters.
Yeah, that's right. The amount of money they received was equivalent to about $2,500 to $6,000 in today's currency. It wasn't just rural families, though. Even poor families in the cities, merchants in financial trouble, and even samurai families sometimes had to sell their daughters.
Even samurai families. It must have been tough. There were cases where a samurai's daughter would voluntarily become a courtesan to help her family. The advance payment in those cases was about 18 ryo, an old Japanese currency, which is roughly $13,000 to $16,000 in today's money.
18 ryo, and they had to work in the pleasure quarters. With that debt hanging over them, that's a huge burden.
Exactly. The women had to work for about 10 years to pay off that debt. But the advance payment accrued interest, and they also had to cover their own living expenses. So, in reality, paying off the debt and leaving after 10 years was hard.
Working for 10 years and still not being able to pay off the debt. It sounds like a trap. Was there any other way for them to get out of the pleasure quarters?
There was one other way called redemption, where a wealthy customer would pay off the courtesan's debt to take her away. But the cost was extremely high. In one example from 1775, about $1.2 million was paid. Even though that's an extreme case, the usual redemption cost was between $200,000 and $330,000.
No way an ordinary person could afford that. So, only a few courtesans were ever redeemed.
That's right. Most of them had to keep working under harsh conditions. Their days were incredibly long, starting with seeing off overnight guests in the morning, and ending with entertaining more guests at night. They hardly had any time to rest.
Working non-stop from morning to late at night. I feel exhausted just thinking about it. And then they had to keep entertaining guests? That's really tough.
It really was. And there was a big gap in the quality of food they received too. The lower-ranking courtesans only got simple meals, while the high-ranking ones could order fancy food or enjoy luxurious dishes brought by their clients.
Even among courtesans, there was that much difference? The lower-ranking ones were told, if you want better food, get it from your clients. That's a harsh world.
It was. And they only got 2 days off a year, but even then, going out freely was difficult. They needed a pass and a chaperone to leave the quarters.
Even on their rare days off, they couldn't go out freely? It's like they were prisoners. Did they use the miyagari system to meet someone they loved?
Yes. Miyagari allowed them to pay for a day off, but it would increase their debt. Still, they used it just to meet someone they loved.
But I heard the brothel owners didn't like it, and kept a close watch on the courtesans. Their lives really were like being in a prison.
Definitely. And they were more likely to get sick because of their harsh lives. And since they had to pay for their own treatment, if they weren't popular, it was hard to even get a doctor. This often led to more debt because of illness.
That's why the average lifespan for courtesans in the Yoshiwara district was only about 22 to 23 years. Such a short life.
But those who managed to survive and pay off their debt were warmly welcomed back into society. People understood the sacrifices they made for their families.
Yeah, their struggles are still remembered and talked about today. Which is proof that they lived. We should never forget that. Well, see you in the next video.
See you. If you found this video informative, please subscribe and give it a like.